product arrives, all the parts and pieces are going to be in cardboard labeled. The most important things that you need to start your building process are your uprights and your crossbars. So we've got those laid out here. A Biblomodel shelving is a starter adder system. What that means is the first unit you build is your starter. You need 2 uprights. To hold those 2 uprights together, you need 2 crossbars, one at the top, one at the bottom. Your next section over, it's called an adder. So for an adder, you need 1 upright, and you just need 2 more crossbars, and you can continue that all the way down. What we typically recommend, get all your parts and pieces unwrapped, to lay them out in a format like this. So you set your 2 crossbars between each of your 2 uprights. From this point now, we'll start building these frames. If you have wood or laminate end panels, this will be your end panel bracket. When we're attaching the end panel brackets, there should be a supply of both round head screws and flat head screws. And then the end panel brackets, the holes are beveled, so you want to use your flat head screws so they sink into the holes. And then when you mount your end panel on the outside, it's flush. You get your bolt through your end panel bracket, through your crossbar, get 1 on there, finger tight so it holds it in place. Go to your next unit with a bolt through, just a nut to hold it, so that you've got your unit standing. For this example, let's say that we're doing a starter and an adder unit. I wouldn't have put this nut in the first place if I knew I was building multiple units. Get that nut on there. And then you can go to your end unit and you can get that standing. Now we've got our frame standing. Your next step from here would be putting in the rest of the nuts and bolts. Only finger tightening. If you do have a unit that's on wheels, I would recommend putting your frames together first. It'll be easier to put your casters on once everything is bolted together. So I've got all my bottom bolts in now. So my next step, put in my top bolts for my top crossbar. So if I get 1 in, and I can balance this one over here, and then when I get down to this section, I already have it standing with the crossbars put together at the bottom. Just makes this a lot easier. On this end here, the bracket that I'm going to install is the bracket that would be included if you had a steel end panel. Much like the bracket for the wood or laminate panel, this one also has holes that line up with your crossbar holes. The top of the T-bar should hug right around the upright. So the next thing that we're going to demonstrate is the base plate or the toe kick. These are not mechanically fastened. There are these little set pins that go into the left and right side, which then line up with the holes on the legs of your upright. Occasionally there'll be some paint overspray on both the base plate and or the upright leg. So if you have difficulty putting the pins in, you may need to give it a quick zap with your drill. The reason that we haven't tightened anything yet is because in order to get these base plates in easily, you need to have the flexibility to move these legs around and get this to line up. Once you get it in there, it's a downward pressure and then a rotate in. So you'll kind of hear a click. Again, they're not mechanically locked in, it's just with these pins. One issue that we found is when there are casters on the shelving, the insert for the caster actually impedes the pin going down all the way. That is not a problem, as your base shelf can cover this anyway, and the pin is long enough that it stays in place. If you don't have casters and you just have a glide, there's a different insert inside this leg and the pin just drops all the way down. The next thing we're going to demonstrate is an option to have signage that fits across the top of the unit. This is called a shelf bridge with sign channel. It's got a groove here on the top which holds the acrylic. The ends of it here slide over the nuts and bolts. So again, the reason you're keeping it loose is so that this all fits together. There'll be a left and a right side sign bracket. If you have multiple units in a row, this sign bracket here would have a notch on both sides, and then this would be your end. So now that we have the unit assembled, everything is loosely put together, just hand tightening. We'll go ahead and tighten it up with our drill gun. It is a 7/16 bit. You'd only need to have your torque at around a 6. These don't need to be super tight. In the event that you don't have signage, the plastic caps will need to go back into the uprights. And if you overdo your torque, when the screws suck in, it'll actually compress the upright, and then your plastic cap will not fit. If you have a sign channel, the bolts that are underneath there are a little bit hard to reach. I would recommend a flexible extension like this one. Say as you tighten these up, they may tend to jump up on you. You will have to loosen it and then retighten it at a very slow RPM. The next thing I want to show you, a steel end panel. It may have a perforated design, it may have some other design that you have chosen, or it may just be a flat steel panel. On the interior, you're going to have two flanges at the bottom. That is meant to sit over the leg of the upright. Now this has already been assembled once, and we took it apart for this demonstration. When this comes out of the factory, there have been times where the holes on the end panel and the holes on the bracket either don't line up or one of them didn't get punched through, in which case I would recommend clamping and drilling your holes through. So the screws that we include for these steel end panel attachments is a small nut and bolt. Because this is a very fine screw, it's going to get a lot of patron touches. I would not use a drill gun with this. I would just use a manual screwdriver. If you've got a little bit of a gap between the metal of the panel and the metal of the bracket, if you've got a clamp, it just brings it a little bit closer. So as you can see in this particular case, the holes that are on the bracket and the holes that are on the end panel don't line up. Probably just have to run your drill gun down there and get a couple holes through, and then you can attach with your small nuts and bolts. So we've assembled a Biblomodel starter adder system.